Hello, and welcome to A Course in Miracles TV. My name is Robin Duncan, and I am your host. Our topic today is on getting unstuck with A Course in Miracles, and I have a wonderful guest with me. Her name is Lisa Natoli. Lisa is an author, teacher of A Course in Miracles, and founder of The Healing Cure. The Healing Cure is a spiritual approach to healing through a conscious, deliberate decision to identify with the true self and know yourself as one with God. She is the creator of a 40-day program for transformation, which is totally free, and co-founder of the Teachers of God Foundation with her husband, Bill. She is devoted to the teaching that healing is a natural ability that can be learned by anyone. And I couldn't agree more. Welcome to the show, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Robin. I've been watching this show since you invited me. I did not know it existed, and you are doing an amazing job. Thank you so much. You're just, I don't know, it just feels like a party in here.
I love that you're here today, and I love that you're enjoying this show. It's pretty new. You are our 11th episode, so super excited to have you here. 11, Ascended Master. Here you are, right? So tell us, how did A Course in Miracles find its way into your heart? What happened there?
Well, I found A Course in Miracles in 1992. I was living in New York City. I was 24, I think. I found it through Marianne Williamson's book, Return to Love. I had always been a seeker. I always, as a child, I had very mystical experiences and, but you're told they're weird, so I shut it all down, but I was super curious about all things metaphysical. And I would spend all my time on my lunch hour. I worked in publishing, and I would just be in the self-help section. And so I was reading Marianne Williamson's book. I lived in Park Slope, Brooklyn. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was a Saturday morning. And as soon as I got to the first couple pages, she mentioned this thing called A Course in Miracles. She talks about these 3 blue books in someone's house and on the coffee table. I literally did not think about it. I was like, I got chills just now when I even said it. Like I grabbed my purse, my money, and I knew I was going to go into Manhattan and see if I could find that book. There was no thinking involved. It was like, I have to find that book. And I went to the Astor Place Barnes & Noble near 14th Street. It's no longer there. I went downstairs to the self-help section. They had one copy. It was $30. I was like, $30 for a book? That's an outrage. I stayed in that store for like 2 hours that day because I kept putting the book back on the shelf and then trying to find a book that was less money. But I kept going back to the blue book. I kept opening it up and being like, I can't spend $30. And I'd put it back on the shelf and I'd look around and I'd come back, I open it up again. And finally I bought it. And it's the best money I ever spent. It's been an interesting journey for me because I had a lot of resistance to the Christian language. I don't come from a religious background. I had a boyfriend at the time. We lived together in Park Slope, and he's an atheist, and which is fine. We were just living our lives, working jobs, eating great meals, doing whatever. And when he wasn't there, I would feel this sense of excitement, and I'd go find the book, and I'd sit near the window and look out the window so I could see when he was walking home until we broke up. And then I was able to put the book out and open. And so that's how I found it. Like, it's been, 30 something years now, I guess, but it really has changed my life.
Now, when you first started studying, what prompted you to dive in deeper? Did you start to learn a particular concept, or did something dawn on you? Or did you have a big aha? Like, what pulled you deeper? Because it's not the easiest book, as we all know, right?
Yeah, I think it pulled me from the moment I picked that book up off the shelf in that Barnes & Noble. I think that was the idea that there's no order of difficulty in miracles and that this is a course in miracles. And I was like, that's available to us? Like, how? Like, I've always been a how girl. Like, give me the down-to-earth, practical how to heal, how to create, how to have a life of joy, and how to reach peace, and all those kinds of things. It was like something's in here that was almost like a soul connection or something. In the early days, like after I started going to Course in Miracle groups in New York and Manhattan, and those were good. It's amazing to meet with people. Like you said, it's not the easiest material. And so a huge turning point in my journey was on July 4th, 2000. I was still working in publishing. I'd been there for 10 years. I was the office darling. I was making money. I had a great apartment. I had all the things the world says one should have for success and happiness. And I was lost. I was drinking heavily every day. I didn't realize it at the time, but I'm like, okay, I have a drinking problem. I picked up smoking cigarettes. Just a sense of like, something's missing here in my life. I didn't know where to turn. And up until that moment, like several months previous to July 4th, 2000, I had been looking in the New York Times for another job. Like I'd reached the top of my game in that job. I was director of marketing. I started at the bottom 10 years earlier, there was nowhere else for me to go. And I thought, I'm 32 years old. I'm at the top of my job here. I'm bored. And I could not find a job in the world. I would look in the New York Times Help Wanted section and I would think, the thing I'm looking for isn't here. I wanted a job. I wanted a sense of purpose, but I thought, it's not here. I don't know how to find it. And I didn't know God. And back then I thought God was outside. I didn't know God. And that's perfect because now I teach you don't have to know. But you have to start where you are. I stood in my living room in Park Slope, Brooklyn. I said, God, if you're there, I want to work for you. And that was my beginning. There was no candles. There was no meditation. There was no prayer. There was no bells or whistles, nothing. It was just like that. It was like one moment of absolute frustration. I don't even know if I closed my eyes, but it was like, God, if you're there, I want to work for you now. And 6 days later, I got fired from my job.
You make a decision and then the world just shakes around you. And sometimes being fired, in my case, I was laid off and, all of a sudden everything just starts to shift and change. And it's a little frightening at first, but I love that you just said, God, I want to work for you. And what a great commitment that is. And here you are still today, so many years later. What do you think in those days when you had a lot of the drinking to try to get you through the day and you weren't happy in your work? And what do you think the course brought you? Today our topic is about getting unstuck. What did it bring to you to kind of get over that deep sadness that was going on?
Yeah, that's a great question. I made a ton of mistakes. I still do to this day. And I feel that's part of my teaching of let yourself be where you are and don't try to be somewhere else. So interesting to try to think back like what happened, because once I lost my job, or just like you said, it was unexpected and it was scary. I was living in New York City by myself. I had a fairly high rent and bills, but somehow sitting in that room getting fired, I knew that the prayer or the call that I had sent out 6 days earlier had just been answered in that form. I think the reason why a lot of people, when they say they want change, deep down they know that if they take that step, that things will maybe out of control. And that's why a lot of people stay stuck. They say they want change, but they don't really. They want it to show up in the form that they want it to show up. They want to control how it comes. They want certain parts of their life to change, but certain parts to stay the same. And so there's this mental idea of change, but still trying to control it. And so that is why I think a lot of people don't change, because once you say yes to change, like once you signify your willingness that you're really done with the life you're living, or the job you're in, or the relationship you're in, or the way you think, and you really mean it, like I really meant it. Like I really meant when I said it, like I just want to work for you, God. I don't even know what it meant. That is the point of real change.
You know, it says in the course that our first experience of change was when we accepted that crazy idea about separation. You know, that didn't go so well. So you can imagine that anyone that's looking at change, we kind of have this deep inner reflection about how change is not the safest thing in the world. And just like you, I remember sitting down on the floor of my husband's office. I sat against the wall and I said, I'm ready. I'm ready to leave my corporate work and just go straight into this spiritual work. And I'm ready. And I didn't know what it meant, and I didn't have any reason to do it, and I didn't have the resources to do it properly, but it just felt like it was time. Just like you said, there's a moment where you just know that's what is in front of you to do. And later that afternoon, I received a cease and desist order on my business. And I started laughing. I opened up the letter from the attorney. Apparently, some other company on the other side of the United States had a problem with the name of my company, and they weren't actually very similar, but they had a nice, pricey attorney send me a letter saying, you must cease and desist on your business. And I just thought, well, isn't that interesting? Because after I said, I'm done, I'm ready to go to work in the spiritual way, and then all afternoon, it was like, did I do the right thing? I wonder if it's the right time. And then all of a sudden, here comes this letter, cease and desist. So I was just, chuckling a while back, because when we do make that decision, it's almost like God rushes in for some kind of reinforcement. Sometimes it doesn't look anything like we expect. So there you were, you take this big step, you're ready to go into this work. What happened next?
So we all have this certain fear, which we may not know it as conscious. There's an idea like all change is going to be bad.
Right.
So still living in New York, I decided that I was going to make a really 100% commitment to do the workbook lessons of A Course in Miracles. I was just going to commit to it. And I felt nothing was happening. Like I felt like I just kept drinking more. I now don't have a job. I think I got unemployment for 6 months. I'm now smoking cigarettes again. I mean, I hadn't smoked cigarettes since I was like 18 or 19. And I think that's the fear. Like, I think it's like somewhere we know that change is happening. We're making that journey back home again, back to the truth of who we are. And that body self is clinging for dear life. And so I think that's what happened for me. And I got to the end of the unemployment, the end of this year, and I was super frustrated and angry, and I felt like I gave my life to God, and where is he? And I just thought, I'm ready to work. I'm ready to help people. I'm ready to serve. And of course, now I know that's like a totally false idea. But at the time, I really felt like I'm doing something wrong. So I ripped my course book up. I said, I'm done. I gave you a year. You're nowhere. And I only left my apartment at that moment, that time in my life, for 3 things: cigarette store, alcohol store, Course in Miracles, Wednesday night group on the Upper West Side. That's all I left my apartment for. I felt no reason for going out anymore. I just felt like, why bother? Why bother getting dressed? Why bother doing anything? And I know a lot of people have that, especially now during COVID. You just think, young people have it. You just think, why bother? I've worked hard at going to school and worked hard in a job, worked hard in my relationship. What did I get for it? So there's this sense of giving up. And that Wednesday at my Course in Miracles group was a woman named Greta. And she was totally new in the group. She wasn't from New York. She had an overnight flight. She was on her way back from Europe to Wisconsin, and she just decided to find a course group that night on her one-night layover. I knew there was God coming to get me. I knew it. She told a story that was so similar to my story of having it all and feeling it was nothing and wanting to know herself, wanting to know love and wanting to wake up. I mean, all the things that we all want deep in our heart. And I followed her. I mean, I literally was like, who are you? And she told me about this academy in Wisconsin, which is no longer there. And I thought I was going to go there for what was supposed to be a 30-day retreat. And I ended up moving there, and I was there for 10 years. And I was there from 2001 until like 2010. And then I lived in New York for several of those years, and I traveled back and forth. But there I am at an Academy for A Course in Miracles, was again 100%, what I thought was 100% devoted. And I'm still suffering. Right? Like, what am I doing wrong? Like, it had always been some missing piece of the puzzle. Like, why is it that I want to be helpful? I want to know the truth. What? Like, that was always my feeling. And it really wasn't until 2012 that I really started to have a realization of what God is, what A Course in Miracles is. It has to do with accepting the truth of what I am, knowing my identity in oneness and wholeness, and living from this place. And so that was a huge opening for me. I would say it's by pure grace that moment came.
What do you think happened there? Because there's the years go by, you're studying, you're in study groups. And for those people that might feel like they are exactly where you were, what do you think could accelerate their journey? Like, do you think it happened because Holy Spirit is a perfect guide, or did it happen because you started to realize what some of the words meant? Do you have any sense of what brought you out of that place and to where you are now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think because of that commitment and the willingness, that it really is this light in us that A Course in Miracles talks about, starts clearing away stuff. So I feel that all of those years were not lost. They really were a clearing where the alcohol that actually disappeared 20 years ago, the cigarette smoking, same. So I had a tremendous amount of things happening during those years, and I was experiencing suffering getting less and less. So I was very much experiencing conflict getting less and less. I wasn't sad anymore, but there were still these energy fields or emotions like doubt, irritation, overwhelm were my particular things. But I know that now, like when I see that it was every time a change happened in my life, it was a decision to be as God created me. It really was. So like with the alcohol, like I thought I couldn't quit. I just thought I'm weak. I'm frail. The alcohol has power over me. The cigarettes have power over me. Like I literally, food, I used to actually feel food calling me from the cupboards. Like it had that kind of power. It was like I couldn't just keep cookies in the cupboard.
I think one of the things that I had to get in my journey was I was very self-sufficient. At least I thought I was. And I always thought I had to figure out the plan or map it out or get to the steps or check off every box and do the right thing and do the good job. And I think things started to pick up for me when I realized that it wasn't up to me, that I really was under the guidance of something greater that has no fear, no anxiety, has every answer. When I started to just accept that it wasn't up to me to get it right or be perfect or have the answers, that if I would forgive myself and just let that be, just like you said, with just recognizing who you are, even a willingness to do that, and allow yourself to be guided by something you cannot see, you don't quite understand, but you know when it's guiding you because it's peaceful. It's very different from guiding yourself. It's kind of like the difference between listening to someone and making a decision on your own. They feel different. You know, I could decide to go to the market, or if somebody asked me to go to the market, that hits us in a very different way. And so it was a definite focus more on listening, less on deciding, forgiving myself when it didn't work out right, you know. So for you, it seems like you really went through this huge transformation.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it was just in general studying the course, or was there anything that you thought, aha, that made a huge difference? Any of those?
For anyone who's watching this right now, so the topic is how to get unstuck. I think the first step is to realize you're not stuck, because the only thing that's stuck is the body self, and you're not a body. When things really started to change for me around 2012 was when I began to understand when A Course in Miracles talks about I'm not weak but strong. Like sickness is of the mind. It's a feeling of I'm weak, I'm frail, I'm powerless, I'm helpless. The world is doing something to me. If only I had blank, I would be happy, I would be abundant, I would be generous, I would be at peace. So we're placing all responsibility outside. The first step is to really check in and realize, okay, hold on a second. I'm not weak. I'm not frail. I'm not powerless. I'm not helpless. I'm not any of those things. The light that I am is totally changeless, unlimited, eternal and free. I'm everywhere. I am one with God. I have God's power. That is the work that you do inside. So it really is a stepping back. Like I think a lot of people who are stuck, they want to change behavior. They want to do something physical. And I think the very, very first step is the inner work. Like seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and all else will be added unto you. And so I would say periods of rest and relaxation and self-inquiry. And a lot of times people actually don't want to change. They think they're stuck, and you're in a mental game of like, oh, I should get in shape. I should this. Oh, I this. When you actually sit quietly, you're able to start becoming grateful for where you are right now. That was a big part of it too. I was like, this isn't later. This is now. My life is right now. And I made a decision that I'm going to live in gratitude and I'm going to be as God created me. And it was like a one-day assignment. And everything started changing after that because I stopped being a victim. I literally, by my own decision, was like, I'm done with the complaining, the worrying, the wondering, all of those states that just were no longer serving me.
You know, I love that advice, though, just about really turning inward because it is an inward journey. We do have a perfect guide. We have way more resources than we think, you know. I relate to you feeling like you were really angry at God. I think for a while I was as well. You start this spiritual journey of awakening, and what we don't realize at the time is our ego is on heightened alert, and so things just start going crazy very quickly. And I used to drive to church parking lots at night. It was the only place I could find that I felt like super safe. I'd be in a church parking lot under some street light there, and I would just have it out. I would think, God, where are you? I remember asking all those questions. How come it feels like you're not here and I'm not hearing you and I don't know what to do and I just want to do the right thing. I just want to serve you. And I can't even count the number of parking lot conversations I had with God. And one day I said, will you please just give me some sign that you're there and that maybe I'm headed in the right direction. And it was funny because the next day I walked into my house and it looked right through to the back window out into the backyard. And I saw this big black butterfly with the white trim on the wings. And he was just dancing in front of the window, almost like, come out, come out. And I thought, well, that's strange. He just kept staying there under the awning next to the window. And I went out to the backyard and he lands on one of the lawn chairs. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And I put my hand out to see if he would get on my hand, and he flew up a bit. He flew all the way across the yard, kind of like spirals. And then he turned around and he came back, and I put my hand out and he landed. And that had never happened to me before. And then I didn't know what to do with him because he stayed for a while. And then he flew up to the eave of my patio, and I looked at him for a while. Then he took off again. He flew in little spirals. He came back and he landed in my other hand. And I thought, okay, that's a good sign, and not every time do we get these signs, but that day it really, really helped. And just like what you said, that when you stopped the whole nothing's working, complaining, moaning, groaning, I did my share because I didn't feel like it was going the way I thought it should. And I kind of spiraled in a bad direction when I was in that place. And it wasn't until I said, you know what? What if I don't know what the plan is? How could I be upset if I don't know what the plan is, right? So maybe I will just try to be in gratitude for what I am, what I do have, what is working, because I was just tired of feeling angry and sad. And I even bought a big black punching bag with a baton, and I would run a little bit in the garage. And I just got tired of it because it wasn't really me. And then things started to open, and I realized such a learning about being in gratitude versus being mopey and whiny. It's not that we're being punished or anything. It's just that we are coming from a thought system based on life is unfair. And boy, will our ego serve up the platter, right?
Yep. But you just brought up a really good point that I actually did not understand until quite recently. I've been for the last 2 years looking at non-duality teachers, Rupert Spira, Francis Lucille, Jean Klein, and I mistakenly thought that I was supposed to be happy. I hear it a lot from Course in Miracles teachers and students, like an idea like I'm not supposed to experience pain. I'm not supposed to experience discomfort. I must be doing something wrong because I'm angry. Often what happens is that we try to pretend we're happy when we're not. That's not helpful. So the non-dual teachings gave me an entirely new perspective, like when you said about buying the punching bag. That is healing, because now what you're doing is you're allowing yourself to go through everything and not try to mask the discomfort with a positive affirmation or a sentence from A Course in Miracles. Because this is about true healing. We have to really see what the mind is doing. One of the ego delay tactics is to go off the mark from the discomfort. Like, we don't want to experience discomfort. We don't want to experience these emotions. So often what we do is we're like, oh, I'll read a self-help book. Oh, I'll get together with my course people and I'll call a friend who will encourage me and make me feel better. And so you actually keep the thing that needs to be seen and released buried. But when you allow and welcome all things to be exactly as they are, just don't try to get out of the discomfort. Don't try to think, if I get rid of this job, it'll be better. If you really want to say, okay, here's the point of where the healing is about to occur. My husband, Bill Free, he always does this thing where he, puts his hand on his heart. He's very heart-centered. And, it's just to take those moments of just resting in God, in quiet, and just coming here where your attention goes off of the external for a moment back here. And then you can remind yourself, I'm not weak. I'm not powerless. I am the light of the world. But you're not telling people. You don't have to go out there and act happy when you're not happy, but to remember, hold on a second, I'm not alone here. I'm not a victim. I'm not trapped. I'm not stuck. That is a very powerful practice. I say it a lot to people lately because I hear it a lot in spiritual groups of people saying I'm fine when they're not fine. Oh, I'm not sick. this isn't about pretending. This is about really remembering the truth where you are and finding the gratitude in that place.
So what would you say for, say somebody is just in a really tough situation. It might be financially or with their health, and they just feel like they've tried everything they know, nothing's working. Would you say that they should use that process that you're talking about turning in and just reminding themselves that that's not the truth of them and to not try to change it? Or what would you say for somebody that is just, they've had it, they're tired, they need a shift? What do you think?
For anyone who's in a really bad place right now, you must make a decision. Like, one of the most powerful parts in A Course in Miracles is the part, how is healing accomplished? And it says that healing cannot be accomplished until the purpose of sickness is understood. That's the first thing. Like, you really have to realize that where you are, you chose for this place. So you might not want to hear that, but this is where you are. And the next part in that section says, healing is accomplished the instant the sufferer realizes, I don't need this. That's it. Like, it really is a decision where you realize, oh my God, I've been suffering. That's an amazing sentence. Like, healing is accomplished the instant the sufferer realizes this need not be.
Right.
So you're taking your power back. You're realizing, oops, like, I've been acting frail, weak, sick, helpless, powerless. I've been blaming other people. I've been blaming myself. I've been attacking myself. A Course in Miracles says, I can escape the world by giving up attack thought. So don't make yourself guilty for the place you're in, but that's the point of decision. Like, you asked me in one of our emails, like, do you have a favorite miracle story? And it happened in 2012. That was a major shift point for me in my own journey, because I was 10 years with no money. 10 years, and I was okay with it. I was in an academy. I was surrounded by a lot of other really dedicated Course in Miracle teachers. I had housing. I was supposed to pay rent, but lots of times I didn't have the money, so I would pay it when I could. And I had lots of debt, credit card debt, and I really had no money. Like, when I say no money, I mean, like, I'd have $25 a week. But when I got to 2012, and I couldn't put gas in my car, I literally couldn't put $4 worth of gas in my car sometimes. I'd have to have people drive me around. I'd ask for rides. I couldn't pay for coffee with a friend. And I was like, oh, I'm fine. It's okay. I don't need money. God will provide. 10 years of that, right?
So what did you do?
Well, I finally was like, okay, well, if this is all coming from me and it just requires a change of mind, that's what I'm going to do. I gave myself a 5-week experimentation period. I was working as a Zumba instructor. I seriously had $25 a week in donation back then. I wasn't working, doing, what I do now. And I kept waiting for someone to give me money, or I'd buy lottery tickets. I would just feel if somebody just gave me a chance, I could build a website. I could do something. But I was acting like a total victim. I just thought, I need life to change for me to change. So I literally couldn't put gas in my car. I mean, I couldn't go out and buy a coffee with a friend. And I was always telling myself, oh, it's fine. I don't need money. God will provide. I'm good. When I finally really understood that here was an opportunity to prove A Course in Miracles, to really show what happens when you change your mind. And I just decided on this 5-week experimentation period where it was almost like I thought of a future self. It wasn't like manifesting. It wasn't like I was going to try to visualize a future that would come later. It was more like, oh, it's already happening now. Like, in a quantum universe, I'm already the richest person on the planet. I'm already the most generous person on the planet. Back then, I thought, if only somebody could give me money, I could start a website. I could be inspiring. I could be encouraging. I could step into this life, but I can't because I have no money. So it was just this record that was running. And in one moment of clarity, it was like, I'm done with that story. Done, done, done. And to me, that's how healing is accomplished, is when you make a decision that you are not going to be that way anymore. And that's my biggest miracle story, because on the internal, I realized, oh, I'm whole. Like, I am inspiring. I am encouraging. And I woke up the next morning in a totally different way than I had been waking up. And I made a decision. I'm going to pay off my debt. I didn't know how. And I had been having an idea to create a 40-day program. What I noticed is that fear always had been stopping me. And what I used as the excuse was, I have no money. So now that I didn't have the I have no money excuse, I had to face the fear of making those videos. So this is what happens. See, when you decide to step into just your unlimited nature, you'll actually begin to see that living that other way was serving you. You didn't have to show up. You didn't have to take risks. You didn't have to do anything. When I really stepped in and said, okay, I'm going to do these videos, and it was hard. It was scary. I didn't want to do it most days. I just thought, I don't want to put myself in front of people. I don't want people to see me on video close up. I'm a terrible course teacher. I mean, all the old ideas that I couldn't see because I was just saying, oh, I have no money. They all came to the surface. And that was the beginning for me. I did it. I put that 40-day program out there. The first one was 268 people. And now over 50,000 people have taken it. We've kept it free. It's just been amazing to see what happens when you simply make a decision that you're done, absolutely done being weak, frail, powerless, helpless. You're not that. You're the light of the world.
Oh, that's so beautiful, Lisa. And thank you that 50,000 people have been touched by that program. While we're talking about it, why don't you let people know how they can find that program?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's part of the Teachers of God Foundation. It's a nonprofit organization I co-founded with my husband, Bill Free. And that's teachersofgod.org, or my own website, lisanatoli.com. You can start it whenever you want. It's been amazing to see the letters that come in. I love that it's free. That was another thing, is like trusting what comes to you, even when it doesn't seem logical. Like my husband and I decided to offer this program for free. I mean, it's a whole program. Some people charge $2,000 for a program like this one. It's not a freebie thing that hooks you into another thing. Like it's a real program for transformation. And our accountant said, you can't make it free. You're a brand new business. Like, how are you going to make money? And it was so clear. No, it's free. And that's what's so interesting to me about that time, is I actually didn't bring in money at first. Like the external really didn't change for a long time, but I changed. So I kept stepping forward, and I was living in total gratitude. So before, maybe somebody would give me $10 or $20 donation, or even $100. I'd find a dime on the ground, and I would dismiss it because I would think, well, my bills exceed this money that's coming in. And so what happens is that you start living in gratitude. Like you find a penny on the ground, or someone gives you a card, or they send you a text with an emoji, or any gift that comes to you, you are like, oh my God, like it's just this rejoicing of the abundance that's flowing. And the one thing that I said at that time was, money comes to me from all directions and falls from the sky. I don't know why I decided on that one, but that's what I decided. This is a happy game we're playing, and that's actually been my experience now. It's like gifts coming from all directions, falling from the sky. I don't know how it works, but it's my joy to speak on these things that everyone who's listening can start to practice and see it for themselves.
That's such good wisdom that we can all apply. You know, I love chapter 30 in the course where he talks about having your perfect day, your happy day. And I think that taught me a lot because he says, you know, there's two things you need to do. And basically, and the first thing is that you would just think about the kind of day you want and you would feel the feelings you would have. And, you know, I think a lot of people, especially how I was back in those days, I wasn't spending a lot of time thinking about life working. I was spending extra time thinking about how life wasn't working. Mm-hmm. And if I had a penny for every thought, I had a really hefty investment in life as it wasn't fair, as it wasn't working. And as I started to put attention back into what would it feel like if life did work? You know, what would that feel like? And making room for that in my mind and just imagining that it's even possible. I think sometimes we decide against the possibility, but it's that second step that I think really took more practice because he says, now make no decisions yourself about how this will come. Yeah. And this is the day you will have. And, you know, like we were talking earlier, one of my old fallbacks was to try to figure it out myself, try to make up the steps, try to do the right thing and use my past learning to guide me. And the more I would lay that down, just like you, lay that down, let it come from wherever, whatever it is I'm supposed to do, however it's supposed to go, understand that I don't know the plan, that there is a plan. I don't know what it is. It's being communicated to me. And to kind of take myself off of center stage in terms of chief problem solver and to take it up in consciousness. So that particular chapter really spoke to me because I tried to spend more time thinking about and investing in what it would feel like to be happy, to be at peace, to be free. And I think when we do that, it's not that we're morphing ourselves into that. I think when we're doing that, we are automatically inviting the Holy Spirit because we're no longer closing the door to that wisdom that knows us just like that, you know? Yeah. So that door is open and then your thoughts start healing and then the life you see starts changing. It does. And you start to see that happiness show up around you. What do you think?
That was so beautifully said, Robin. I love that. And to me, that is like the quote unquote formula that I did use for getting unstuck. I love that you mentioned that in chapter 30 in A Course in Miracles, because it really is that simple. Like think about the kind of day you want and tell yourself, this is the day I will have if I make no decisions by myself.
And so that's the tricky part, right? Make no decisions yourself.
And so you're stepping into it. Like, see, and that's where the world is really already changing, and because people begin to understand that it's like a reality that's available to us right now. And we have to start living from our wholeness, living from oneness, living from gratitude, and it's invisible. So a lot of people get stuck because they're still looking at the body level and their bank account and their relationships and world situations, and they're looking outside of themselves. But what does Lesson 7 say? I see only the past. So this is now a decision to really say, okay, I'm going to practice and experiment with this idea. What would it feel like to be the richest person on the planet, the most generous person on the planet, and to be happy and to live authentically and to live in grace and to live in oneness and to love my brother as myself and to love myself? Like, I think this is a big one. People don't love themselves. They don't value themselves. They just think like, I'm terrible. Everything's wrong about me. So to me, like, that is an amazing change that can happen when you just make that decision. No more attacking myself. Done with that. If anybody who's stuck could do that one thing, just make that decision. No more attacking myself. No more judging myself. Done with that.
That is huge. I think so too.
It really is.
Starting point. You know, also later in chapter 30, there's a little line where it says that the turning point basically is when we're willing to be wrong about our old thoughts, beliefs, whatever it is we're thinking that is disturbing our peace. So even if you're in this really tough situation, you don't know your way out of it, and you believe that maybe there is no way out, or it's going to be really, really hard, you could say to yourself out there in the audience, you could say, I'm willing to be wrong about that. I am willing to make room for a higher, happier answer. I'm willing to know there is one. You know, I think the course for me, that whole idea of willingness was so important, because anyone can be willing. And they can do it right from their couch. You know, they don't have to get up. You don't have to be extra spiritual or have perfect words. You can just do it right from wherever you are, sitting in your car, sitting on the lawn. We can be willing to see it differently. You know, like you might think that your situation is just dire, or you're lonely, or you're sad, or you feel sick, or you feel broken, or you're worried about someone else. It's just, you know, dear God, I'm willing to see this differently, and I don't know how. You know, I think it's okay to not know how, and he tells us that the scariest words to the ego are, I do not know. And I had to learn those words because my ego always wanted to rush in with an answer, not like a know-it-all, but just, I always wanted to try to help, try to, you know, get to the right place and try to contribute. And I found sometimes maybe I need to stand down and let Holy Spirit lead the way, right?
I love that. And that's it. Like, and that's the place where I think the accomplishment is realized, is that we don't have to go do things anymore. Like whatever needs to be done is now being done through us. And that's amazing. Like that's the proper use of the body, is that now the light can shine through us and we're not blocking it anymore. But we don't have to go do things anymore. It's just total presence and availability for, if something wants to come through us, we don't block it. It's an exciting time for me personally to see how many people around the world are really coming into this realization of just seeing themselves in this new way and seeing the world in this new way, realizing that they have this power.
You know, if whatever the situation is that someone is working with, you know, sometimes it feels like we're in this very dark room. We don't know where the door is. We don't know where the window is. We don't know where the light switch is. And it can just feel hopeless sometimes. Or even if we look into the world around us, it can look like there's no answer. There's no way out. There's no way to make it better. And I think right where we are, if we can just be where we are, just like Lisa said, you know, to make no decisions ourselves and to let all things be as they are, but be willing to know that there's something greater than yourself that really does love you, that really is listening, that really does want to help and will help. And then our part is to not decide against that, and not decide against ourselves, not decide against this answer that might take us to a better situation. And sometimes that's really hard because our situation can really pound us and we get tired, you know, and sometimes we run out of hope. But we could just be willing to be wrong about the bad outcome. We could be willing to know that there is a higher power that really wants to help. And I find that this is that fertile ground for miracles to occur. You know, if we can just be willing to see something differently, it's really helpful. You know, I don't think I've shared it on here, but when my brother was about 4 years old, he wanted a bird. And my mother said, well, you really can't have a bird because I'm really, really busy. And so we can't really have a bird right now. And my brother said, well, I know I can have a bird and I know God will give me a bird. And she said, well, you can ask God all you want, but you can't have a bird. Anyway, she felt bad about saying those words. But my brother went on the porch and he folded his hands and a bird flew into his lap. And then he took the bird inside in the kitchen.
That's such a good story.
Of course, let him keep the bird, right?
Yeah.
She just felt like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I said that. But I think about that a lot because, you know, people that want something to occur, it's joyful, it's happy. And you think, well, how come it happened for him and it doesn't happen for me or for someone else? But that 4-year-old didn't have one thought against it. Even a mother saying, you know, you can't have that bird and you're too young and there's too much to do. He didn't go to the porch and say, well, I want a bird, but I doubt if God will give me one. I want a bird, but I probably am not old enough to take care of it, and it'll probably die anyway. And it would probably be something that just cost you, we go into our own happy idea with all these ideas about why it shouldn't work. And if we could be like that 4-year-old, right? We could just be in the joy, just like chapter 30, decide your perfect day, feel the feelings you would feel, and then make no decisions about how it would come. And sometimes that takes practice because we're pretty worn down by our experience, and we have to forgive ourselves for that, right?
Yep. That was an amazing story.
It's so cute.
And that's it. Like, just it's a resistance that keeps everything away from us. But when we have no resistance, and that is the key. Like, it's a paradox because we can want things, but we have to let go of our attachment to how it unfolds. And to be totally happy with everything exactly as it is. I mean, I could go on and on forever of just the things that have changed in my life when I began being in absolute gratitude for exactly everything that is right now. It's where if someone's stuck, I would just say you start falling in love with everything that is around you right now. The house you're in, the car, the people you're with, just start really allowing yourself to feel love and gratitude. Really start to love instead of fight and resist. I mean, that story was so good, Robin, because that had like the whole step-by-step how it works in it, because there was no resistance.
That seemed to speak to me that maybe that whole conversation that was going on in my mind, maybe that's what's in the way. And it always is. If we will just not decide against ourselves, whatever it is we're trying to fix, solve, change, make better. I always think of illusions over here and the truth over here, just to give it a point of reference that we can't look both ways at the same time. And when we're engaging the problem, we're not engaging higher consciousness. And it's kind of like we are letting go in our mind, only in our awareness. We never actually let go, but all of a sudden we can't hear, we can't see what's going on over here because we're engaging the illusion over here. And if we can just let that go for a moment, even in a quiet time of prayer and meditation, and get over here in that space of happiness, just what you said, just allow yourself to have that moment of freedom and invite this higher consciousness over here to decide for you. I think I love those words most of all. Decide for me, Holy Spirit, decide for me. Because sometimes we can be in a situation where it just seems like there is no good answer. And I say, Holy Spirit, will you decide for me about this? I refuse to decide against myself, decide against you, decide against that other person over there. I refuse to decide against anyone. You decide for me where I might have decided against myself. I want the highest, happiest, most remarkable outcome, whatever that is, according to your will. And then we step back and just let everything start to flow. Well, I love that you just had this journey of transformation. And I think the people that are learning from you, following in your footsteps, I'll bet you today they're moving even faster in their transformation. I know when I was doing this, you're doing this, like we didn't really know what we were doing or how we were doing it. And the more that we have teachers like you that we can follow, what's going on. Is there any pitfalls, challenges, speed bumps that people should look out for while they're on this journey of trying to make room for a higher, happier life and a higher, happier inner peace within themselves? Something that they should be aware of along the way?
Yeah, I think that, you mentioned it earlier. I don't know how you said it exactly, but I think one of the, I'll call it a pitfall, or one of the things to expect is that you will go through a period of disorientation. It will look like things are falling away, because they are. You will probably go through a period of intense fear and rage and anger. It's transformation. It's literally the dismantling of the old thought system. That's the thing. That's why a lot of people don't take this journey. They start it and then they stop it and then they go back to their old patterns. And that's why Jesus from 2,000 years ago, basically said, you have to come now and don't look back. because as soon as change starts to occur, people freak out. They just think, well, I wanted change, but not like this. I didn't
Not
want to
like
lose.
this.
I didn't want to get cancer, and I didn't want to lose my job. So we judge everything by appearances. And I'm not saying that you'll get those things or that's what will happen. But when you say, above all else, I want to see, above all else, I want to know myself. I want to know oneness. I want to know wholeness. I want to know what everyone's talking about. I want to have that experience. And then that's why the first characteristic of a teacher of God is trust, because you are going to need it. I always try to make the teaching joyful. Like, I try to use my life as the example that I've been through everything. I've literally been through everything. And there were some things I really thought, I'm not going to make it out of this. Like, there was a huge amount of time I thought I was dying. I thought every day I'm just like, this is it. There's no way this body's going to last much longer. I've had no money. I've had it all. And so I understand what people go through. I understand that things come up. I understand reverting back to old patterns. My suggestion would be, love yourself. Do not make yourself guilty. Do not judge yourself when it looks like you're not making progress, you've made mistakes. My suggestion is always make the mistakes. Be a child. Let it be messy. And that's why community can be very important, because then you realize, oh, we're all going through the same thing. It's not like, oh, that person had a transformation that was scot-free. And I mean, if you look at any of the ones who talk about a spontaneous awakening, Eckhart Tolle, Byron Katie, I've been with them all, Adyashanti, they all talk about it being messy. They all do. Yogananda, I love all of them. Jesus, they put him on a cross. I mean, it's like there's no walk in the park here. So I think everyone just has to make the decision, like, how much do I really want this? And then from there, just be prepared that things will change. Old emotions will come up. You might feel worse before you feel better.
Well, I love that whole idea of just choosing to love yourself. And even if you don't know how, it's that willingness, a willingness to forgive yourself for every mistake, every failure, everything you think you did not do or did not say or should have done or should have said. And what if you would just, give yourself a blank slate today and just let everything be shown about how it can be different without dragging the past into it. And we know that change is one of those pitfalls because we tend to judge it. It's almost like we've all been spinning the plates for so long and you want it to stop, you want it to change, but then you don't want another plate. And if you stop spinning, then it feels like it will crash. And just be willing to know if there's a desire in your heart out there for things to get better, to go in a different direction. You have a perfect inner guide that does not fail. And when you're afraid, the Holy Spirit is not afraid. When you're feeling anxious, the Holy Spirit is not anxious. When you forget who you are, the Holy Spirit has not forgotten who you are. So there's this higher place of wisdom, grace, understanding, guidance, everything we need. It's like an action-packed, perfect plan for our success in terms of remembering that peace of God within us. And then we do start to see the beautiful evidence of the peace all around us in our relationships and our health. I do notice those things on a physical level, but they are an effect of that inner healing. So Lisa, we thank you today for all that you've shared with us, all the great wisdom. And I know this is a very personal journey for you of transformation. So it's not easy to think about those old times, but I know it helps people that might be right where you were or where I was, and to know that there is a way through and that we have a perfect inner guide and that they can start learning things from you and benefiting from the things that you already tried and it didn't work, and you can tell them what does work. And, it does quicken our path and we get to peace much more swiftly that way, right?
Yeah, thank you so much, Robin, for all the work you're doing. Thank you, everyone who's listening. To me, really is just about experimentation and just trying these things and seeing for yourself. And it does work.
Well, tell us again where they can find your website and your materials.
Oh, thank you. So my website is lisanatoli.com. I actually send emails out. They're totally free, and I've been told they're very unique. It's I just write them spontaneous, maybe one time a week. It's like Healing School straight to your inbox. And the Healing Cure is my 8-week coaching program, and the 40-day program is totally free, and it's all on my website.
That sounds great, Lisa. I love all that natural healing that you're teaching everyone. And we know everyone has it within them to heal and to receive the accomplishment of that healing through the Holy Spirit. So I hope you'll come back with me again and we can talk more about all of these wonderful topics. Will you?
I would love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa. Well, this is Robin Duncan with A Course in Miracles TV. Be sure to check out our website at acourseinmiracles.tv for upcoming events and resources. And this channel is offered freely for public benefit. And your donations help to keep this program coming your way. So thank you so much. And remember to expect miracles and have a blessed day.